The wind howled across a landscape blanketed in ice and snow, carrying with it the biting chill of a world untamed and merciless. Towering glaciers stretched to the horizon, their jagged edges glinting like shards of glass under the pale winter sun, and rivers were frozen solid, locking water into an unyielding prison. In this frozen wilderness, survival was never guaranteed. Every step across the snow-crusted terrain demanded vigilance, for beneath the silent white blanket lurked dangers both natural and primal. The Ice Age was not merely cold. It was a formidable adversary, testing the limits of human endurance, ingenuity, and resilience. Amid this frozen expanse, small groups of early humans navigated their existence with astonishing skill. They were fragile by nature, unarmored against the biting cold, yet driven by an indomitable will to survive. Each breath formed clouds of mist. Each movement through the snow left tracks that predators could follow. The contrast between human vulnerability and the brutal power of the environment set the stage for a daily battle that was as much psychological as it was physical. Fear and anticipation were constants, yet so were hope and the quiet warmth of community. At the heart of this struggle was the concept of nightfall. As the sun dipped below the jagged horizon, the temperature plummeted, and darkness brought with it a heightened sense of danger. Shadows of towering trees and snow-laden cliffs stretched across the land, concealing both prey and predator. For cavemen, the approach of night was not just a signal to rest, but a moment fraught with tension. Fires had to be rekindled, shelters reinforced, and children kept close, for survival depended on careful preparation and collective vigilance. Yet, despite the pervasive danger, the Ice Age world was not devoid of beauty. The shimmering frost on pine needles, the soft glimmer of ice crystals reflecting the weak winter light, and the rhythmic fall of snowflakes created a landscape both harsh and hypnotically mesmerizing. Early humans perceived and navigated this world with an acute awareness of both peril and promise. Every frozen cave, every sheltered overhang, was a temporary bastion against the unforgiving cold. Every animal tracked across the snow held the potential to feed or maim. In this delicate balance, life and death were intertwined in a daily ritual of observation, adaptation, and courage. This opening section also sets the tone for understanding why survival required far more than mere physical strength. It demanded intellect, innovation, and the ability to read the subtlest cues from the environment. The caveman's eyes scanned for the slightest movement of animals, the faint crackle of ice underfoot, or the distant howl of predators. Every decision carried weight. Choosing the wrong path could lead to starvation or exposure. In contrast, the right choice, guided by experience and communal wisdom, could turn the harshest winter night into another day of life. The human connection to this frozen world was intimate and instinctive. Simple gestures, gathering kindling, arranging stones for shelter, layering furs, were amplified in significance by the life or death stakes. Cavemen were simultaneously students, engineers, and strategists, learning through trial, observation, and collective memory. Their nights were long, cold, and unforgiving, yet within their communal fires burned resilience, stories, and a shared determination to endure. Through these small acts, the Ice Age humans carved out moments of warmth, safety, and hope in a world seemingly designed to overwhelm them. In essence, the Ice Age was a crucible, shaping humanity not just physically, but socially, cognitively, and culturally. It was a period where each winter could be a death sentence or a lesson in endurance. This cinematic introduction frames the story of survival not merely as a historical fact, but as a visceral, immersive experience. The viewer is transported into a landscape where danger and beauty coexist, and where the fragility of human life is highlighted against the grandeur and cruelty of nature. The stage is set for an exploration of how early humans endured, adapted, and ultimately thrived against the bitterest nights of the Ice Age, guided by fire, ingenuity, and the bonds of community. The Ice Age stretched its frozen fingers across the continents, reshaping landscapes and imposing new rules for survival. Vast glaciers crept slowly over mountains and valleys, carving deep fjords and jagged cliffs, while ice sheets blanketed entire regions, turning fertile plains into frozen deserts. The climate was harsh and unpredictable. Temperatures plunged to levels modern humans can barely imagine, and sudden storms swept across open expanses, burying tracks in snow and concealing dangers beneath icy drifts. Rivers froze solid, lakes became treacherous mirrors of ice, and forests, once abundant, became sparse and skeletal in winter's grasp. Life for early humans was defined not just by scarcity, but by the necessity of constant vigilance. Every frozen wind, every shifting ice patch, was a challenge to anticipate and navigate. Geography itself dictated movement, settlement, and survival. Mountain ranges, glaciers, and frozen rivers were both obstacles and guides. Early humans had to understand the terrain instinctively, tracking animal migrations and finding sheltered valleys where frostbite and exposure could be momentarily avoided. Coastal regions offered frozen shores and access to marine life, but winter storms battered these areas mercilessly. Forested areas provided wood and shelter, yet snow-laden branches could collapse under their own weight. In this icy labyrinth, knowledge of the land was not luxury. It was essential for life. Cavemen learned to read subtle signs. The way snow was packed could indicate hidden crevices, or a faint trail of tracks might lead to prey. Geography, climate, and survival were inseparable threads in a web that early humans had to navigate with keen observation and cautious strategy. The climate was mercilessly cyclical. Summers, though brief, brought a flurry of activity: hunting, foraging, and preparation for the inevitable freeze. Yet, as autumn faded, the temperature dropped rapidly, and humans were forced to confront the merciless grip of winter. Snow began to accumulate. Ice crusted over rivers, and the nights stretched longer, colder, and darker. The contrast between the abundance of summer and the stark deprivation of winter shaped human behavior and cognition. People had to anticipate scarcity, store resources, and plan meticulously. Every miscalculation could mean frostbite, starvation, or death. Seasonal rhythms were a constant teacher, reminding early humans that life in the Ice Age was a delicate negotiation with the environment itself. Survival challenges extended beyond cold and food scarcity. Natural hazards lurked everywhere. Avalanches thundered down frozen mountainsides without warning, crushing anything in their path. Ice bridges over rivers could collapse under the weight of a single human. Blizzards swept across open plains with terrifying speed, disorienting travelers and erasing familiar landmarks. Predators, already adapted to the cold, roamed these landscapes with lethal efficiency. Wolves, cave lions, and saber-toothed cats prowled the snowfields, stalking both prey and humans. Cavemen had to combine intelligence, caution, and sheer courage to endure these dangers. The Ice Age was a world where the line between life and death was drawn in snow, ice, and shadow. Despite the relentless threats, early humans discovered ways to manipulate their surroundings for survival. Sheltered valleys, overhangs, and caves became critical refuges from the biting wind and predators. Fire, carefully managed, provided warmth, a method to cook and preserve food, and protection against wild animals. Tools and clothing offered protection and expanded capabilities, allowing humans to hunt, build shelters, and travel in conditions that would otherwise be fatal. Innovation was not optional. It was a direct response to the formidable forces of nature. The story of human survival in this section is a story of adaptation, trial, error, and ingenuity. Anthropology and archaeology offer glimpses into how these challenges shaped early human societies. Fossilized remains show that Ice Age humans often migrated over vast distances, following herds and seeking hospitable microclimates. Cave paintings, stone tools, and remnants of shelters reveal a profound understanding of geography and climate. Social organization emerged from necessity, as survival often depended on cooperation, shared knowledge, and collective problem-solving. Early humans learned not only to endure the environment, but to anticipate it, reading the subtle signs of weather, animal behavior, and terrain. They became acute observers, blending instinct with experience in ways that ensured survival against formidable odds. The psychological dimension of living in such a climate was equally significant. The constant threat of freezing temperatures, scarcity of food, and lurking predators created a backdrop of tension and fear. Yet, within this environment, humans also experienced wonder and awareness. The auroras that danced across the polar skies, the crystalline beauty of snow-laden forests, and the stark majesty of ice-carved mountains left impressions that were both terrifying and awe-inspiring. The interplay of fear and fascination shaped the human mind, fostering imagination, planning, and cultural expression. In the midst of relentless adversity, humans found ways to interpret, respond to, and even find meaning in their environment. Ultimately, this section frames the Ice Age not as an abstract historical period, but as a tangible, immersive world of contrasts, beauty and danger, abundance and scarcity, warmth and freezing cold, life and death. By understanding the geography and climate of the Ice Age, viewers gain insight into the immense challenges early humans faced and the remarkable adaptability that allowed them to endure. It sets the stage for subsequent sections on hunting, shelter, fire, and social life, showing that survival was never passive. It required constant vigilance, keen observation, and a deep understanding of the frozen world in which humans lived. In the relentless cold of the Ice Age, early humans were more than fragile beings wandering across frozen landscapes. They were living, adapting entities shaped by evolution to endure extremes that would overwhelm an unprepared body. Their physiology was a silent testament to survival, a complex orchestration of biological adaptations designed to counter frostbite, hypothermia, and hunger. Broad shoulders, muscular limbs, and robust skeletal structures allowed them to travel long distances across snow and ice, to carry heavy prey, and to build shelters under relentless conditions. The human body itself became a tool, honed by necessity, bridging the gap between vulnerability and resilience. One of the most vital adaptations was metabolism. Ice Age humans required immense energy to maintain body heat in sub-zero temperatures. Fat storage became essential, creating a natural insulation against the cold while providing reserves for lean winter months. Those with higher body fat and muscle mass had an advantage, as every ounce of stored energy could be the difference between survival and death. In contrast, undernourished individuals quickly succumbed to exposure and exhaustion. The human body, in this environment, was a finely tuned survival machine, constantly balancing energy intake and expenditure against the demands of an unforgiving climate. Skin, hair, and extremities told another story of adaptation. While modern humans are sensitive to frost, early humans developed thicker skin and coarse body hair that provided additional protection. Hands and feet, most vulnerable to freezing, were fortified with circulation patterns that prioritized core survival over peripheral warmth. The stark contrast between exposed fingers, trembling in icy winds, and the relatively protected torso illustrates the body's calculated trade-offs, highlighting how evolution favored survival strategies over comfort. Anthropological studies of skeletal remains suggest that frostbite and related injuries were common, yet human ingenuity, clothing, fire, shelter, complemented these biological defenses, creating a synergy between physiology and environment. Beyond physical traits, endurance and stamina were key. Early humans could travel long distances in search of food, tracking herds over plains, mountains, and frozen rivers. Their lungs and cardiovascular systems were conditioned to cope with exertion in thin, frigid air. Nights spent in freezing caves or open shelters demanded resilience not only of the body but of the mind, as sleep was often interrupted by cold, hunger, or the threat of predators. Muscles were honed not in gyms, but through the daily rituals of survival, carrying firewood, dragging heavy game, and constructing shelters under extreme weather. In this way, the human body became a testament to perseverance, capable of feats modern humans would struggle to replicate. Nutrition played a critical role in sustaining this physiology. High-protein diets from hunted animals provided essential energy and nutrients, while seasonal foraging supplemented vitamins and minerals. The contrast between the lean months of deep winter and the relative abundance of summer forced humans to optimize every calorie. Food scarcity drove both physical and social adaptations, encouraging communal sharing and teaching younger generations the skills necessary to secure sustenance. The human body, therefore, was not only a product of evolution, but of environment-driven behavior, a living record of adaptation, ingenuity, and necessity. Psychologically, physiology and survival were intertwined. The constant awareness of cold, hunger, and fatigue shaped decision-making and social interactions. Stress responses heightened alertness to predators, sharpened tracking skills, and reinforced cooperative behavior. Fear and caution were necessary for life, yet the ability to endure discomfort and push physical limits defined the boundaries of survival. Early humans were remarkably resilient, their bodies and minds finely tuned to withstand the extremes of Ice Age winters while continuing the pursuit of life, family, and community. Moreover, injuries and illnesses were challenges that shaped human adaptation. Bones and joints reveal evidence of fractures, arthritis, and repetitive strain from hunting and labor-intensive tasks. Yet most individuals survive to adulthood. This survival reflects not only physical robustness but cultural strategies, knowledge of medicinal plants, the care provided by fellow tribe members, and innovations in shelter and clothing. The interplay of biology and culture demonstrates that early humans relied on a dual system of internal adaptation and external ingenuity to thrive in a world designed to test every limit. In essence, the human body of the Ice Age was a remarkable instrument of endurance, a living reflection of survival against staggering odds. It combined strength, stamina, resilience, and subtle protective mechanisms in a dance with the environment. Every muscle, every stored calorie, every adaptation of skin or circulation was a response to the constant threat of freezing temperatures, scarce food, and relentless predators. By examining caveman physiology, viewers gain insight into the profound challenges of Ice Age life and an appreciation for the intricate balance between biological adaptation and survival strategy. This understanding of the body sets the stage for how humans approach their environment, how they hunted, built shelters, started fires, and formed social bonds. The story of physiology is inseparable from the story of survival. It is the foundation upon which all other strategies were built. Through endurance, adaptation, and ingenuity, early humans transformed vulnerability into capability, establishing the basis for thriving in one of the harshest climates Earth has ever seen. The forest lay silent under a thick blanket of snow, broken only by the crunch of frost beneath the feet of early humans as they moved with deliberate caution. Winter hunting was a test of skill, patience, and courage, where the difference between success and failure could determine life or death. Cavemen were not merely passive wanderers. They were meticulous strategists, observing animal behavior, reading the signs left in snow and ice, and coordinating with their group to maximize the chance of a kill. Every step, every whisper of wind, and every shift in snow could betray their presence or guide them to sustenance. In these frozen landscapes, hunting was both an art and a science, balancing instinct with ingenuity. The prey itself varied with the terrain and season. Woolly mammoths trudged across the tundra, their massive bodies leaving deep tracks in snowdrifts. Reindeer and elk grazed cautiously near sparse patches of grass, ever alert to predators. Smaller animals, like rabbits and birds, were essential for supplementing food stores. Understanding animal behavior was critical. Cavemen observed herd patterns, migration routes, and even subtle changes in movement to anticipate where prey would appear. Hunters became keen observers of life, noting the way frost-crusted trees bent under snow, how footprints might lead to a den, or how the wind carried scent that could betray their approach. Tools and weapons were vital extensions of human ingenuity. Stone-tipped spears, sharpened bones, and handcrafted axes transformed cavemen from vulnerable scavengers into formidable hunters. These implements were designed not only for killing, but for efficiency in processing meat and hides afterward. Some groups perfected throwing techniques, while others developed collaborative strategies to encircle prey or drive herds toward cliffs and traps. The combination of careful observation, learned skill, and tool use reflected a sophisticated understanding of their environment, where failure could mean starvation and success could sustain a community for weeks. Hunting in winter brought unique challenges. Deep snow slowed movement, concealing hidden dangers and exhausting hunters more quickly. Rivers and frozen marshes were treacherous, requiring careful assessment before crossing. Wind direction could reveal human scent to keen-nosed predators or alert prey. Silence became both a weapon and a necessity, with hunters communicating through subtle gestures or signals to maintain coordination. Each hunt demanded preparation, selecting the right time of day, choosing the most effective route, and conserving energy to endure the cold. In contrast to the warmth and security of the campfire, the hunting grounds were a place of exposure, risk, and constant vigilance. Yet, hunting was never an individual endeavor. Collaboration was the key to success. Groups worked together to stalk prey, creating strategies that amplified their effectiveness. Older, experienced hunters guided the young, teaching them the subtle signs of animal behavior, the proper use of tools, and the importance of patience. Stories passed orally reinforced knowledge, passing techniques from generation to generation. The social dimension of hunting was crucial. Survival depended not only on skill, but on trust, communication, and the ability to act as a unified entity. Through collaboration, cavemen turned the inherent dangers of winter hunting into a structured and strategic pursuit. The psychological tension during a hunt was immense. Fear of injury, the cold, or failure heightened alertness and honed instinctual responses. Hunters faced the dual challenge of remaining calm while preparing for the moment of confrontation. Tracking prey required a balance of patience and aggression, waiting for the perfect moment to strike while being ready to adapt to the unexpected. In these frozen plains, hunters experienced adrenaline, anticipation, and acute focus, fully immersed in the primal rhythm of survival. Success brought exhilaration and sustenance, while failure served as a harsh, often life-threatening lesson. After the hunt, the challenges were far from over. The processing of meat, hides, and bones required skill and coordination. Fresh kills had to be transported back to the camp without spoilage, preserved when possible, and distributed among the group. The hides provided warmth and materials for clothing, while bones and sinew were repurposed into tools and weapons. Every part of the animal was valued, reflecting a deep understanding of conservation and efficiency. These post-hunt practices reinforced social bonds, as each member of the group contributed to the labor required to transform a kill into a resource that could sustain them through the harshest nights. Hunting also shaped the culture and belief systems of Ice Age humans. Cave paintings frequently depicted successful hunts, heroic animals, and communal efforts, suggesting that hunting was more than survival. It was a central narrative of human identity. Rituals might accompany the hunt or the processing of prey, blending practical survival with symbolic meaning. The interplay between success, danger, and reverence for the creatures they depended upon illustrates the complex psychological and cultural framework underpinning winter hunting. In this way, survival, spirituality, and community were inseparable facets of daily life. Environmental knowledge extended beyond immediate hunting techniques. Cavemen tracked seasonal migrations, studied the effects of snowfall on movement patterns, and learned the habits of predators competing for the same prey. They understood that a failed hunt one week could affect the entire group's chances of surviving a month. This deep ecological awareness, combined with physical endurance, tactical skill, and social coordination, allowed humans to thrive in an environment that was, by every measure, hostile and unforgiving. Ultimately, winter hunting was a delicate balance of risk and reward, danger and mastery. It exemplified the resilience, intelligence, and adaptability that defined early humans. Each hunt was a microcosm of Ice Age life. Moments of tension, struggle, and uncertainty, punctuated by triumph and sustenance. Through these hunts, humans learned the value of collaboration, innovation, and careful observation, all while confronting the raw power of the natural world. The hunt was not merely a means of survival. It was a crucible that forged the social bonds, skills, and resilience that would ensure the continuation of human life in one of Earth's harshest climates. Even in the harshest winters, the landscape offered pockets of sustenance for those who knew where and how to look. Snow-covered plains and frozen forests may have seemed barren, but early humans understood that survival depended not only on hunting large animals, but also on the subtle gifts hidden in nature. Roots, tubers, nuts, berries, and fungi provided essential nutrients, and even the smallest finds could tip the balance between starvation and endurance. In a world dominated by cold, scarcity, and predators, the ability to forage effectively was a skill as vital as strength or weapon-making, requiring patience, observation, and intimate knowledge of the environment. Cavemen learned to recognize edible plants despite their often concealed presence beneath snow or frost. Some plants were discovered by trial and error over generations, while others were observed in their dormant winter state. For instance, certain roots and tubers could be dug from frozen soil, and evergreen shrubs often bore berries resistant to frost. Knowledge of medicinal plants also emerged in tandem, as leaves, bark, or roots could relieve pain, ward off infections, or provide energy. These discoveries were passed down orally through repeated demonstration and storytelling, forming the earliest foundation of human ecological intelligence. The act of foraging contrasted sharply with hunting. While hunting demanded coordinated movement, physical strength, and rapid decision-making, gathering required patience, attention to detail, and the ability to read subtle signs in the environment. Cavemen needed to identify safe foods from poisonous ones, recognize seasonal variations, and understand the nutritional value of each plant. This slow, deliberate interaction with nature honed senses and instincts in ways that hunting alone could not. Every successful forage trip was a combination of observation, memory, and careful experimentation, illustrating how humans adapted cognitively to survive in frozen ecosystems. Foraging also demanded ingenuity. Snow and ice could conceal vital resources, so tools like digging sticks, bone spades, and sharpened stones became essential. Cavemen learned to use fire to thaw frozen soil or cook tough roots, expanding the range of edible plants. Observing animal behavior provided additional clues. Following tracks of herbivores often led to patches of edible vegetation, while birds and rodents revealed sources of seeds and berries. In these frozen landscapes, survival required a holistic understanding of the ecosystem, blending biological knowledge, tool-making, and environmental observation. The risks of foraging were significant. Traversing icy terrain to reach a known plant patch could expose humans to predators or hidden dangers like thin ice or falling branches. Hypothermia was a constant threat, especially for those who remained stationary while digging or harvesting. Unlike hunting, where adrenaline-fueled action, gathering often required long periods of calm endurance, with the body and mind exposed to biting winds and deep cold. Yet, the rewards were crucial. A handful of berries or a cache of roots could sustain a family for days, and accumulated knowledge ensured survival throughout the long winter months. Social dynamics were intertwined with foraging. Families or small groups often set out together, sharing discoveries and teaching younger members which plants were edible or useful. This cooperative learning reinforced bonds and distributed knowledge, creating a system where survival was enhanced by collective wisdom. Sharing the gathered resources fostered trust and reciprocity, demonstrating that human adaptability was as much social as it was physical. Foraging thus reinforced both survival and the social fabric of Ice Age communities. Winter foraging also shaped the seasonal rhythms of life. It forced humans to plan ahead, storing dried roots, nuts, and berries in protected areas near shelters. Knowledge of which plants could be preserved, how long they would last, and how best to prepare them became essential survival strategies. This foresight, born from repeated winters of trial and error, reflects the remarkable cognitive abilities of early humans. They learned to anticipate scarcity, develop storage techniques, and rely on nature's subtle patterns to sustain life during the coldest months. Culturally, foraging held significance beyond immediate survival. The skill, knowledge, and stories surrounding edible plants became intertwined with ritual and learning. Certain locations were revisited annually, becoming sacred or symbolically important in the communal memory. Observing the cycles of plants and understanding their interdependence with animals and climate laid the foundation for early ecological awareness, bridging practical necessity with deeper comprehension of the world. Ultimately, winter foraging exemplified human resilience, curiosity, and adaptability. It was a delicate dance with nature, requiring knowledge, patience, and subtlety. While hunting often captured the imagination as a dramatic test of strength, gathering was equally vital, sustaining life when large prey was scarce and teaching early humans to observe, innovate, and cooperate. In this interplay of effort and reward, danger and sustenance, early humans demonstrated an extraordinary capacity to survive against the odds, drawing life from the quiet, hidden corners of a frozen world. In the bitter grip of Ice Age winters, fire was nothing short of miraculous. Its flickering light and radiating warmth transformed the frozen landscape from a deadly wilderness into a space where life could endure. Early humans discovered that fire was more than just a tool. It was a source of safety, sustenance, and social cohesion. The glow of a well-tended flame provided comfort against the relentless cold, a defense against prowling predators, and a center around which communities gathered, shared knowledge, and strengthened bonds. Fire was survival manifested in warmth, light, and energy, the heartbeat of life in a world defined by ice. The mastery of fire did not come easily. It required observation, experimentation, and innovation. Early humans learned to create sparks by striking flint against pyrite, generating friction with dry wood, or carefully transferring embers from natural sources, such as lightning strikes. Each method demanded skill and patience. A single misstep could extinguish a flame and place lives at risk. The process of starting, nurturing, and preserving fire became a critical daily activity, reflecting a delicate balance between human ingenuity and environmental awareness. Fire had to be maintained continuously, sometimes for days, to withstand snowstorms, rain, or the cold of night, requiring careful attention and teamwork. Beyond warmth, fire transformed the very nature of sustenance. Raw meat, often difficult or even unsafe to eat, could be cooked over flames, making it more palatable, digestible, and nutritious. Cooking also allowed early humans to extract more calories from food, an essential adaptation in an environment where energy expenditure was extraordinarily high. Roasting roots or steaming plants made winter foraging more productive, expanding the dietary options during scarce months. Fire extended the range of consumable foods, turned otherwise inedible materials into nourishment, and directly influenced survival rates, underscoring its central role in human life. Fire also acted as a shield. Predators, deterred by smoke and flames, gave humans a critical advantage. Wolves, cave lions, and other Ice Age predators hesitated to approach the glow of a fire, creating a zone of relative safety. Strategic placement of fires near shelters, entrances of caves, or temporary encampments allowed humans to control access points, monitor surroundings, and assert a measure of dominance over the natural world. The psychological effect of fire was profound. It transformed fear into confidence, darkness into security, and vulnerability into strength. The social dimension of fire cannot be overstated. Gathered around a communal flame, early humans shared food, knowledge, and stories. Skills such as tool-making, hunting techniques, and medicinal practices were transmitted in these illuminated spaces. Fire became a nucleus of communication, teaching, and cultural continuity. The contrast between the isolation of the frozen world outside and the warmth of the fire within highlighted the power of community and cooperation. It reinforced social bonds, enhanced learning, and created a shared sense of purpose, an essential factor in surviving harsh winters. Innovation around fire extended to preservation and long-term survival. Early humans learned to store embers in insulated containers, carry fire from one site to another, and even ignite fires with chemical reactions using natural materials. They built hearths with stones to control flame spread, dug fire pits to maximize heat retention, and utilized smoke to cure hides and meat for storage. Every advancement increased their ability to endure, highlighting the interplay between creativity, necessity, and the environment. Fire was not static. It evolved as humans experimented, adapted, and refined their techniques, becoming increasingly central to winter survival. Psychologically, fire was a source of hope and reassurance. In the darkness of long, cold nights, it symbolized life itself. The glow of flames reassured the young, comforted the fearful, and galvanized communities facing the omnipresent threats of cold and predation. Fire created a sense of temporal and spatial control. Humans could shape their immediate surroundings, turning inhospitable landscapes into livable spaces. The mental relief offered by warmth and light cannot be underestimated, for in the Ice Age, survival was as much a cognitive challenge as a physical one. Fire also catalyzed cultural and symbolic practices. Cave art, for instance, was illuminated by torches, allowing humans to document hunts, rituals, and experiences on walls that would endure for millennia. Flames were sometimes incorporated into ceremonial practices, marking transitions, honoring successful hunts, or paying homage to unseen forces. This interplay between practical necessity and emerging culture demonstrates that fire was not merely a survival tool, but a medium through which humans began to understand, interpret, and shape the world around them. The ecological awareness surrounding fire was also remarkable. Early humans recognized the effects of fire on vegetation, animal behavior, and climate. Controlled burns could clear underbrush, attract herbivores, and manage landscapes for more predictable hunting outcomes. This early understanding of fire management reflects a sophisticated relationship with the environment, blending observation, experimentation, and strategic planning. Humans were not passive inhabitants. They actively engaged with nature, manipulating and responding to its rhythms in ways that enhance survival. Ultimately, fire was the linchpin of winter survival. It united physical protection, nourishment, social cohesion, cultural expression, and psychological resilience in a single, luminous force. The glow of a well-tended fire marked the boundary between life and death, warmth and freezing exposure, safety and the perils of the night. In a frozen world dominated by uncertainty, fire represented mastery, adaptability, and hope. It was the spark of ingenuity that allowed humans to endure, thrive, and lay the foundation for the complex social and cultural systems that would define human evolution. By understanding fire in this context, viewers see it not simply as a tool, but as a transformative force. It allowed early humans to navigate extreme climates, build community, expand diet, and cultivate culture. Fire was, in every sense, the heart of life during the Ice Age, a flame of survival burning in the midst of cold, darkness, and danger. It is the lens through which we can begin to understand the remarkable resilience, creativity, and foresight of early humans as they confronted the harshest winters Earth has ever known. In the unforgiving cold of the Ice Age, a shelter was more than a place to rest. It was a lifeline. The landscape offered few natural havens, and the bitter winds, drifting snow, and lurking predators made finding or creating a safe refuge an essential daily priority. Caves became natural sanctuaries, their stone walls insulating against icy drafts, while overhangs, rock formations, and depressions in the earth offered temporary protection for small groups. Yet even these natural shelters required human ingenuity to make them truly habitable. Floors were insulated with layers of leaves, moss, and animal hides, and entrances were guarded with strategically placed stones or branches to deter predators. Each shelter represented the intersection of observation, skill, and necessity, turning raw landscapes into livable spaces. Not all groups had access to caves, and in these cases, early humans built their own structures. Simple huts made from branches, bones, and hides provided critical protection against the elements. These structures were carefully designed to minimize heat loss, using low entrances, windbreaks, and compact interiors. Some groups experimented with layering furs and moss to increase insulation, while others dug shallow pits in the ground to retain warmth. Even snow itself could be shaped into a protective barrier. Domed snow shelters, though temporary, offered surprising insulation from the bitterest winds. The construction of shelters was both an art and a science, reflecting a deep understanding of materials, climate, and the physics of heat retention. The contrast between exposed landscapes and the interior of shelter was stark. Outside, temperatures could plummet well below freezing, ice crunched underfoot, and predators roamed freely. Inside, the carefully prepared floor, the presence of fire, and the protection of walls created a microclimate that allowed humans to conserve energy, dry clothing, and sleep without the constant fear of exposure. This contrast underscored the importance of planning and foresight. Survival was not only about immediate responses, but about shaping an environment that maximized comfort and safety within the constraints of nature. Shelters also reinforced social cohesion. Families and small groups shared these spaces, huddling together for warmth and support. The placement of sleeping areas, communal spaces for food preparation, and spots for fire all required coordination and cooperation. Shared shelters encouraged the exchange of knowledge, from which younger members learned hunting, tool-making, and foraging techniques. The social dimension of winter housing was critical. Isolation increased vulnerability, while communal living offered both protection and a psychological buffer against the harshness of the environment. Adaptation to winter conditions influenced shelter design in subtle yet profound ways. Entrance positioning was deliberate, often aligned with the sun to maximize daytime warmth or shielded from prevailing winds. Shelters were sometimes clustered near water sources or hunting grounds, balancing accessibility with safety. Seasonal mobility also dictated housing strategies. Temporary structures were designed for quick assembly and disassembly, allowing groups to follow migrating herds while maintaining protection against the elements. Shelter was therefore not static. It evolved in response to environmental challenges, availability of resources, and social needs. Archaeological evidence provides insight into the ingenuity of these constructions. Excavated sites reveal layered floors, evidence of smoke management, and carefully shaped stones and bone frameworks. Hearths were central, often surrounded by seating areas for communal activity, indicating that shelters were as much social hubs as survival mechanisms. This evidence underscores that early humans approached housing with intentionality, applying observation, experimentation, and cumulative knowledge to optimize their chances of enduring the harsh winters. Psychologically, the security of a well-constructed shelter provided more than warmth. It offered a sense of control in an unpredictable world. The contrast between the hostile environment outside and the relative safety within gave early humans the mental space to rest, plan, and engage in social and cultural activities. Children could be nurtured, elders cared for, and knowledge transferred, all within a controlled microenvironment that mitigated the immediate threats of cold, hunger, and predation. Shelters were therefore both practical and transformative, shaping daily life, social dynamics, and survival strategies. Winter housing also influenced dietary and technological practices. Food storage became feasible within shelters, allowing groups to preserve meat, roots, and other perishables near warmth but away from scavengers. Tools could be maintained, repaired, or crafted indoors, sheltered from snow and moisture. The synergy between fire, shelter, and storage demonstrated a sophisticated approach to problem solving. By creating a safe environment, early humans extended the possibilities for survival, innovation, and community cohesion even in the harshest conditions. The evolution of shelters also reflected cultural development. Cave paintings, carvings, and arranged objects within these spaces suggest that humans imbued their refuges with meaning beyond mere protection. Certain areas were designated for rituals, communal storytelling, or teaching, indicating that shelters were central not only to physical survival, but to the continuity of knowledge and cultural identity. The Ice Age shelter was therefore a crucible of both life and culture, a space where the challenges of environment, the necessity of cooperation, and the emergence of human creativity converged. Ultimately, winter shelters embodied the intersection of survival, ingenuity, and social life. They transformed a deadly environment into a habitable one, allowing humans to endure freezing temperatures, avoid predators, and maintain group cohesion. Every layer of insulation, every strategically placed stone, and every shared hearth reflected centuries of accumulated knowledge, experimentation, and adaptation. Shelters were more than buildings. They were instruments of resilience, shaping the daily existence of early humans and providing the foundation for the social, cultural, and technological advances that would follow. By understanding shelters, viewers gain insight into how early humans actively engaged with and manipulated their environment. Survival was not passive. It was a deliberate act of planning, innovation, and cooperation. The warmth and safety of shelter stood in stark contrast to the frozen wilderness outside, illustrating the remarkable ability of humans to transform danger into security, scarcity into opportunity, and isolation into community. In the story of Ice Age survival, winter housing was a defining testament to the ingenuity, resilience, and adaptability that allowed humanity to endure the coldest nights in history. In the merciless winters of the Ice Age, clothing was far more than decoration. It was armor, essential for life itself. Early humans could not rely solely on their physical adaptations. The bitter cold, wind, and snow demanded external protection. Animal hides, furs, and layered skins became crucial tools in the battle against freezing temperatures. Each layer, carefully selected and treated, transformed the human body into a portable fortress, preserving heat, shielding against frostbite, and enabling mobility across snow-covered landscapes. Clothing was survival manifested, a delicate balance of functionality, resourcefulness, and ingenuity. The process of creating garments was complex and labor-intensive. Animal hides had to be carefully removed, cleaned, and tanned to prevent decay. Some groups developed rudimentary methods of softening leather with natural oils, fats, or brains to create pliable materials suitable for clothing. Furs were often layered strategically. The thickest, warmest pelts close to the body for insulation, with lighter hides on the outside for wind and moisture resistance. Every stitch, tied sinew, and folded layer reflected a deep understanding of materials and environmental needs, demonstrating that clothing was both practical and an expression of human creativity. Design was influenced by climate and activity. Hunters require mobility, so garments were tailored to allow movement while still providing warmth. Fur-lined boots and gloves protected extremities, which were most vulnerable to frostbite. Hoods and head coverings minimized heat loss, while cloaks or capes shielded the body from wind-driven snow. The arrangement of clothing demonstrated a sophisticated awareness of human anatomy and thermodynamics, revealing that survival depended not only on obtaining materials, but on mastering their use. Clothing was therefore both tool and technology, merging knowledge, skill, and foresight. The choice of material extended beyond warmth. Durability was essential. Hides and furs needed to withstand the rigors of travel, hunting, and daily activity. Repairs were common and necessary, using sinew, bone needles, and twine to patch tears or reinforce wear points. Early humans also learned to adapt garments for multiple purposes: blankets for sleeping, wraps for carrying infants, or coverings for shelter walls. Clothing was multifunctional, a dynamic extension of survival strategy, allowing humans to manipulate their immediate environment while maintaining mobility, warmth, and protection. Beyond mere survival, clothing had social and cultural dimensions. Certain furs or patterns may have denoted status, skill, or group affiliation. Adorning oneself with carefully arranged hides or decorative elements could serve to communicate identity, experience, or accomplishments. This interplay between utility and symbolism illustrates that clothing was not purely functional. It became part of the cultural and psychological landscape of Ice Age humans, blending necessity with expression. Clothing also interacted closely with other survival strategies. For example, insulated garments allowed for longer foraging expeditions or hunting trips, reducing energy loss and increasing the likelihood of success. They complemented shelters and fire, creating an integrated system of warmth and protection. Together, these innovations allowed humans to endure sub-zero temperatures while maintaining the strength and focus necessary for hunting, gathering, and social activities. Clothing was therefore a central pillar in the architecture of survival, as indispensable as fire or shelter. Psychologically, well-crafted clothing provided confidence and security. The knowledge that hands, feet, and core were protected against frost instilled courage, allowing humans to move through the landscape with purpose rather than fear. It transformed the perception of danger, mitigating anxiety and enabling focus on hunting, foraging, and other essential activities. In a world dominated by cold, clothing was a constant reassurance, a tangible reminder of human ingenuity against the harshness of nature. Innovation in clothing was ongoing. Early humans experimented with stitching techniques, combinations of materials, and methods of layering to optimize warmth, flexibility, and longevity. Observation of animal behavior may have inspired solutions, such as using certain furs for specific purposes or layering patterns to maximize insulation. Over time, these iterative improvements reflected a sophisticated understanding of material science, long before the term existed. Clothing was not static. It evolved with experience, trial, and the demands of the environment, mirroring the broader adaptability of Ice Age humans. Ultimately, clothing was more than protection. It was survival, mobility, culture, and innovation intertwined. Every fur, hide, and layer of insulation told a story of ingenuity, foresight, and resilience. In combination with fire, shelter, and social cooperation, clothing allowed humans to endure the coldest nights, traverse frozen landscapes, and thrive in a world that would have been lethal without these adaptations. It was quite literally armor against the cold, a tangible expression of the human capacity to manipulate the environment, overcome adversity, and persist in one of the harshest climates in Earth's history. Understanding the role of clothing in Ice Age survival highlights the profound intelligence, creativity, and adaptability of early humans. They did not merely endure winter. They engineered solutions, optimized materials, and integrated technology, culture, and community to thrive against the odds. Clothing, in this context, becomes a symbol of human ingenuity, resilience, and a ceaseless drive to survive, learn, and master even the most unforgiving environments. Amid the biting cold and endless snow of the Ice Age, early humans discovered that survival was not a solitary pursuit. Communities, however small, became lifelines. Family units and small clans shared not only warmth but knowledge, resources, and responsibility, creating a social structure finely tuned for endurance. The organization of daily life, from gathering firewood to hunting and caring for the young, reflected a sophisticated understanding that cooperation was essential for survival. In these frozen landscapes, the contrast between isolation and community was stark. Those who huddled together endured, while the solitary were vulnerable to hunger, cold, and predators. Family life was a central pillar of survival. Children were nurtured in close proximity to adults, learning essential skills through observation and guided practice. From a young age, they were introduced to hunting techniques, tool-making, fire maintenance, and the identification of edible plants. Elders played a crucial role as knowledge keepers, passing down strategies honed over generations. The interplay between generations created a system of shared learning, ensuring that the wisdom of experience was preserved and adapted. Life in the Ice Age was precarious, but within family groups, children grew equipped with the skills, awareness, and resilience necessary to face each winter's challenges. Roles within the group were often divided by skill, age, and capability, yet flexibility was key. Strong hunters and gatherers ventured out to secure food, while others maintained shelters, prepared clothing, or cared for the young and infirm. Such specialization was complemented by adaptability. Circumstances demanded that individuals assume multiple roles, from defending the group against predators to leading tracking expeditions. Social cohesion was maintained not merely through necessity, but through mutual reliance and shared effort. The success of the group depended on the ability of each member to cooperate, communicate, and contribute to the survival of the whole. Communication played a pivotal role in maintaining these social structures. Early humans used a combination of gestures, vocalizations, and perhaps primitive symbolic language to convey information critical for survival. Directions, warnings, and signals could mean the difference between life and death during a hunt or storm. Around fires, storytelling reinforced memory, transmitted practical knowledge, and strengthened bonds. These interactions nurtured trust, empathy, and collaboration, qualities that allowed humans to endure conditions that would have overwhelmed solitary individuals. Social intelligence was as essential as physical strength, creating a balance between communal life and environmental challenges. The psychological dimension of group living was profound. Shared warmth and protection alleviated the constant stress of exposure, hunger, and predation. Human beings, wired for connection, found security in proximity, deriving both emotional and practical benefits. Conflict and hierarchy existed, but the overriding force was survival. Cooperation was reinforced through reciprocal care. Those who assisted in gathering, hunting, or defending others ensured that support would return in kind. Within these social systems, early humans developed not only practical skills, but empathy, trust, and the foundations of culture. Rituals and customs often emerged from social life, blending survival with symbolic practice. Communal gatherings around fire for warmth and storytelling fostered cohesion and a shared sense of purpose. Certain roles, such as designated hunters, scouts, or caretakers, were recognized and respected. Social norms, though likely informal, governed behavior and reinforced group stability. The balance between cooperation, leadership, and shared responsibility enabled humans to navigate the harshest winters successfully. These structures were not static. They evolved with experience, environmental demands, and group size, reflecting the adaptive nature of human society. Family units also structured time and routine, providing predictability amidst chaos. Daily activities, collecting firewood, preparing food, maintaining clothing and shelters, were coordinated to maximize efficiency and safety. Children learned the rhythm of seasonal tasks, elders guided the group in planning, and the collective memory of previous winters informed decisions about movement, hunting, and foraging. These routines minimized risk, optimized energy expenditure, and reinforced social bonds, demonstrating that human adaptation was as much cultural as it was physical. Survival pressures also influenced emotional and social development. Early humans likely experienced grief, fear, and joy in ways recognizable to modern observers. Loss of a family member to cold or predators reinforced communal reliance, while shared triumphs in successful hunts or shelter construction strengthened solidarity. Emotional resilience, nurtured within the group, became a crucial survival tool. The social fabric of the Ice Age was a delicate interplay of care, learning, and mutual dependence, with each individual's well-being tied to the welfare of the collective. Moreover, social structures facilitated technological and cultural innovation. Knowledge of tool-making, fire management, clothing construction, and shelter building was shared and refined within the group. Innovations that improved survival were observed, taught, and incorporated, enhancing the collective ability to endure harsh winters. Social cohesion and structured family life created a feedback loop of learning and adaptation, ensuring that humans could not only survive but gradually thrive in extreme conditions. The bonds forged in family and community were inseparable from the strategies that allowed life to persist. Ultimately, social structures and family life were a cornerstone of Ice Age survival. The interplay of cooperation, knowledge transfer, division of labor, and emotional support created a resilient network capable of enduring severe winters. In the stark contrast between the unforgiving external world and the security of the group, early humans discovered that survival was a shared endeavor. They learned that warmth extended beyond fire and clothing. It existed in the embrace of family, the guidance of elders, and the coordinated efforts of a community united against the harshest forces of nature. Understanding social structures illuminates the profound intelligence and adaptability of early humans. Survival was not simply about enduring the cold or securing food. It required a complex web of cooperation, emotional resilience, and knowledge transfer. Within families and small communities, humans transformed vulnerability into strength, uncertainty into strategy, and the perils of the Ice Age into a shared journey of endurance, innovation, and cultural growth. Social bonds were, in essence, a form of armor against the cold, as essential as any fire, shelter, or fur-lined garment in ensuring life continued through the harshest winters. In the frozen expanse of the Ice Age, survival depended as much on human ingenuity as on physical endurance. The harsh environment demanded tools and weapons capable of transforming vulnerability into power. Early humans were not merely passive observers of nature. They were innovators, shaping stones, bones, and wood into extensions of their own abilities. Each tool, from a sharpened spear to a carefully crafted knife, was a calculated solution to the challenges of hunting, foraging, shelter building, and protection. In this context, technology was not luxury. It was survival encoded in craftsmanship. The creation of tools began with raw materials scavenged from the environment. Stones with sharp edges, dense wood, and bones from previous kills provided the foundation for early engineering. Flint, obsidian, and chert were favored for their ability to hold a sharp edge, and careful flaking techniques allowed humans to shape them into points, blades, and scrapers. These stone implements became critical for hunting large game, processing hides, and preparing food, demonstrating a sophisticated understanding of materials science and practical physics long before such terms existed. Weapons extended the reach and power of the human body. Spears, often tipped with flint or bone, allowed hunters to engage dangerous animals from a safer distance, reducing the risk of injury while increasing the effectiveness of the hunt. At times, multiple hunters coordinated to drive herds toward ambushes or traps, combining physical skill with strategy. The evolution of throwing techniques, spear throwers, and basic bows enabled humans to hunt more efficiently and adapt to the challenges of winter survival. The interplay between tool design and hunting strategy underscores how technology and behavior co-evolved, each enhancing the other. In addition to hunting, tools were indispensable for daily survival tasks. Scrapers processed hides for clothing and shelter insulation. Awls and needles allowed for stitching furs and creating durable garments. Stone hammers and bone chisels shaped wood for shelters and defensive implements. Even seemingly simple implements required careful planning and skill, illustrating that early humans possessed not only creativity, but also precise motor control and the cognitive ability to envision a finished product from raw materials. Tools were extensions of mind and body, turning intent into tangible solutions. Ice Age winters also demanded adaptability in tool use. Snow and ice introduced new challenges, requiring innovations such as digging sticks for frozen soil or multi-purpose tools capable of both cutting and scraping. Early humans learned to modify existing implements for multiple tasks, conserving resources while maximizing functionality. This versatility was crucial, as the scarcity of suitable materials made efficiency essential. Each tool reflected a careful balance between form, function, and resource management, revealing a deep understanding of survival strategy as much as engineering. The psychological impact of tools and weapons was profound. In a world where predators lurked and food was scarce, the possession of a functional spear or knife instilled confidence and agency. Tools transformed fear into capability, allowing humans to assert a measure of control over their environment. They also reinforced social structures, as knowledge of toolmaking was shared and taught, creating bonds and transmitting critical survival skills across generations. Through these shared practices, technology became a medium for cooperation, education, and cultural continuity. Innovation was often incremental, built on observation and experience. Early humans studied the behavior of prey to design more effective weapons, experimented with materials to improve durability, and refined techniques over time. Flint knapping, bone carving, and wooden hafting were learned skills, passed from one individual to another, becoming part of the collective knowledge of the group. Successes and failures alike contributed to a cumulative understanding that enhanced survival odds for the entire community. In this way, tools were not just practical. They were a record of human ingenuity and adaptation to one of Earth's most extreme climates. Tools also facilitated the processing and storage of food, critical for enduring long winters. Knives and scrapers allowed for efficient butchering, while containers fashioned from wood, bark, or bone enabled safe transport and preservation. Tools expanded the range of edible resources, from frozen meat to tough roots, and enabled the creation of storage caches near shelters. These innovations directly impacted survival rates, highlighting the profound interconnection between technology, sustenance, and environmental mastery. Defensive tools and weapons underscored the constant threat of predators. Wolves, cave lions, and even rival human groups posed dangers that required both physical protection and strategic planning. Clubs, spears, and sharpened stakes served as deterrents and means of defense, while collaborative hunting and guarding strategies increased safety. The dual utility of tools for hunting and defense illustrates the complex interplay between human creativity, environmental pressures, and social coordination. Weapons were not only instruments of survival, they were embodiments of awareness, foresight, and adaptive intelligence. Beyond their practical applications, tools and weapons contributed to cultural expression. Engraved stones, decorated handles, and carved bones suggest an aesthetic awareness and symbolic meaning. These embellishments, whether purely artistic or ritualistic, indicate that technology was intertwined with identity, status, and cultural communication. In many ways, early humans were storytellers and innovators simultaneously, embedding knowledge, skill, and meaning into the tools that sustained them. The cumulative effect of tools and weapons was transformative. They expanded the range of human capability, reduced vulnerability, and enabled communities to thrive in environments that would otherwise be inhospitable. Each spear, blade, or scraper tells a story of observation, experimentation, and adaptation. They were not mere objects but extensions of human intelligence, bridging the gap between fragility and resilience, cold exposure and warmth, hunger and sustenance. Tools were the tangible proof of human ingenuity shaping survival. Ultimately, tools and weapons illustrate the essence of Ice Age life: constant adaptation, problem-solving, and innovation in response to a world of extreme challenges. Early humans transformed raw materials into functional instruments, mastering their environment while simultaneously creating the foundation for culture, cooperation, and technological progress. Through these implements, they extended both their physical reach and their cognitive foresight, turning vulnerability into strategy and survival into triumph. In the frozen expanse of the Ice Age, tools were far more than instruments. They were lifelines, symbols of intelligence, and keys to the enduring legacy of human ingenuity. Even in the frozen expanse of the Ice Age, life was not purely a struggle for survival. Early humans possessed curiosity, imagination, and a deep sense of connection to the world around them. Rituals and spiritual practices emerged as integral elements of daily life, offering meaning, structure, and psychological resilience in the face of harsh winters. From cave paintings depicting hunts and animals to symbolic arrangements of bones and stones, these practices reflected an evolving consciousness, an awareness that survival was not only physical but intertwined with belief, memory, and the unseen forces of nature. Cave art is among the most striking evidence of early spiritual and ritual activity. Painted and engraved depictions of mammoths, bison, and human figures served multiple functions, documenting hunts, honoring successful kills, and possibly invoking protection or luck for future endeavors. The flickering light of torches cast shadows over these images, imbuing the scenes with motion and life, creating immersive experiences that connected humans to the stories, skills, and spirits of their ancestors. In this way, ritual became a bridge between the tangible and the intangible, blending survival, culture, and psychology. The natural world itself inspired spiritual thought. Predators, weather patterns, and seasonal cycles were not merely obstacles, but entities that commanded respect and observation. Certain animals, such as the woolly mammoth or cave lion, may have held symbolic significance, representing strength, danger, or spiritual guidance. Fire, too, played a ritualistic role beyond warmth. The hearth became a sacred center for storytelling, teaching, and ceremonies, linking life, community, and survival. Through these practices, humans cultivated a sense of order and understanding amidst the unpredictable forces of nature. Rituals also reinforced social cohesion. Collective participation in hunting ceremonies, food-sharing events, or seasonal celebrations strengthened bonds and established shared norms. These activities were not frivolous. They maintained group morale, reinforced trust, and prepared members psychologically for the challenges of winter survival. Singing, chanting, or rhythmic movement may have accompanied such gatherings, regulating attention, focus, and coordination. In essence, early rituals served both spiritual and pragmatic purposes, blending culture with adaptation. Burial practices provide further evidence of emerging belief systems. Some archaeological sites revealed deliberate interment of the dead, often accompanied by tools, ornaments, or symbolic objects. Such practices suggest an understanding of life, death, and possibly an afterlife, reflecting deep emotional and cognitive development. Honoring the deceased may have helped communities process loss, strengthen communal identity, and maintain continuity across generations. Rituals surrounding death reinforce the value of social bonds and the importance of shared responsibility for survival. Symbolic behavior extended to everyday objects as well. Tools, clothing, and shelters could be decorated or arranged in meaningful ways, indicating that aesthetic and spiritual considerations were intertwined with practical concerns. Patterns etched into bone or stone, or arrangements of objects in shelters, may have conveyed status, skill, or affiliation, creating a cultural language that transcended survival. The act of imbuing objects with meaning reinforced cognitive complexity, providing psychological support, identity, and continuity in harsh and unpredictable environments. Rituals also served educational functions. Through story, symbolism, and demonstration, knowledge of animal behavior, seasonal cycles, and survival strategies was encoded within cultural practices. Younger members learned critical skills while participating in ceremonies or observing symbolic art, ensuring that essential knowledge survived alongside spiritual expression. In this way, ritual, belief, and practical learning were inseparable, each reinforcing the other and enhancing the group's overall resilience. The interplay between fear and reverence shaped spiritual thought. Natural threats, blizzards, predators, scarcity, were both respected and symbolically integrated into communal life. Rituals may have functioned as psychological coping mechanisms, providing a sense of control or protection when facing uncertainty. In observing, honoring, or mimicking the forces of nature, early humans transformed fear into understanding, danger into manageable narrative, and isolation into shared experience. Spiritual practices thus complemented physical survival, offering mental fortitude and emotional stability critical for enduring long, harsh winters. Seasonal cycles and celestial observation likely informed spiritual life as well. The movement of the sun, phases of the moon, and changes in animal migrations were keenly observed and often integrated into ritual practice. Such awareness helped humans anticipate resource availability, plan hunting and foraging expeditions, and coordinate communal activities. Spiritual and practical knowledge intertwined seamlessly, demonstrating that Ice Age belief systems were sophisticated frameworks supporting both survival and meaning-making. Ultimately, rituals and spiritual practices were inseparable from the larger tapestry of Ice Age life. They provided structure, reinforced community, transmitted knowledge, and offered psychological resilience. In the extreme conditions of winter, when physical survival was a constant challenge, these practices allowed humans to endure not only with their bodies, but with their minds, hearts, and shared identity intact. The interplay of survival, symbolism, and social cohesion created a world where life, death, danger, and hope coexisted, giving early humans the tools to navigate both the tangible and the unseen aspects of their environment. Understanding the rituals and beliefs of early humans illuminates their remarkable cognitive and cultural sophistication. They were not merely surviving. They were interpreting, reflecting, and shaping their world. Through art, ceremony, and symbolic behavior, they established continuity, transmitted critical survival knowledge, and nurtured the social and emotional structures necessary to withstand the harshest conditions. Ritual and belief, in essence, were as vital to life as fire, clothing, and shelter, providing the intangible armor that allowed humans to endure the Ice Age with resilience, creativity, and shared purpose. The harsh winters of the Ice Age demanded mobility as a core survival strategy. Resources were never static. Herds migrated, plants were seasonal, and frozen landscapes shifted unpredictably. Early humans learned to move with purpose, tracking animal migrations, following the availability of edible plants, and seeking shelters that could withstand snow and wind. Seasonal journeys were not mere wanderings. They were carefully calculated endeavors, blending observation, memory, and communal planning. The contrast between the frozen stillness of winter and the fluidity of human movement underscores the ingenuity required to survive in a world defined by scarcity and extremes. Migration was often dictated by the rhythm of the animals. Woolly mammoths, reindeer, and other large herbivores traversed vast distances in search of food, and following these herds was essential for sustained access to meat, hides, and bones. Humans observed tracks, droppings, and feeding patterns, developing intricate knowledge of animal behavior. This allowed them to anticipate movements, position ambushes, and plan routes that maximize hunting success while minimizing exposure to danger. Mobility was thus both a physical and cognitive challenge, requiring stamina, observation, and strategic foresight. Journeys were planned with a deep understanding of landscape and climate. Rivers, valleys, and mountain passes were studied for navigability, while snowdrifts, frozen surfaces, and wind corridors were accounted for en route selection. Decisions were made collectively, balancing the needs of the group, the vulnerability of children and elders, and the seasonal availability of resources. Planning also included contingencies for storms, predation, and scarcity. Survival was not haphazard. It was the product of careful observation, learned experience, and cooperative decision-making. The tools of movement extended beyond observation and planning. Early humans fashioned sleds, carried fire embers, and utilized protective clothing to facilitate long treks in sub-zero temperatures. Groups traveled in formations that provided safety, shared knowledge, and maximized efficiency. Sleds made from wood and animal skins allowed heavier loads of food, firewood, or shelter materials to be transported across snow-laden terrain. Fire, clothing, and communal support ensured that these journeys were possible, illustrating how mobility was interconnected with other survival strategies. Migration and seasonal movement also had profound social and cultural implications. Journeys reinforced group cohesion, as shared experiences fostered trust, cooperation, and interdependence. Knowledge of routes, hunting grounds, and foraging areas was passed down during travel, creating living maps of the environment and ensuring continuity across generations. Social rituals, songs, and storytelling likely accompanied these movements, providing entertainment, instruction, and psychological comfort during long, exhausting treks. The act of moving together reinforced identity, community, and purpose. Risk was an ever-present companion on these journeys. Traversing frozen rivers, steep slopes, or deep snow increased the likelihood of accidents, hypothermia, or predation. However, the reward of following herds, reaching fertile valleys, or securing winter shelters outweighed the dangers. This constant negotiation between risk and reward honed decision-making, situational awareness, and resilience. Mobility was therefore a combination of courage, knowledge, and adaptive intelligence, demonstrating that survival extended beyond physical endurance to include strategic planning and environmental mastery. The timing of migrations was critical. Early humans needed to anticipate seasonal changes in weather, plant growth, and animal behavior. Traveling too early could expose them to deadly storms, while traveling too late risked depleted resources. Observing the sun, stars, moon, and animal cues allowed humans to synchronize their movements with natural cycles. Seasonal migration became a complex system of prediction and adaptation, reflecting both ecological awareness and cognitive sophistication. Each successful journey reinforced survival knowledge, which was then shared and refined over generations. Journeys also facilitated trade, exchange, and genetic diversity. Movement across regions allowed groups to encounter other human communities, exchange tools, techniques, and resources, and form alliances. These interactions enhanced survival by spreading innovations, increasing access to scarce materials, and reinforcing social networks. Migration, therefore, was not solely about immediate sustenance. It shaped cultural, technological, and social evolution, providing the foundation for interconnectedness long before modern civilization. The physical challenges of travel were immense. Cold, fatigue, and snow made every step a test of endurance. Children, elders, and the infirm required special attention, with careful pacing and rotation of responsibilities. Communities adapted by carrying essential supplies, utilizing sleds, and coordinating rest and shelter stops. These logistical strategies highlight the ingenuity and foresight required to maintain mobility in extreme environments. Migration was not mere wandering. It was a carefully orchestrated operation, blending human physicality, social cooperation, and environmental intelligence. Spiritual and symbolic considerations may also have influenced journeys. Certain landmarks, rivers, or mountain ranges could hold ritual significance, guiding travel routes or marking important seasonal transitions. Storytelling and observation of celestial patterns provided both practical navigation and cultural continuity. In this way, migration was not only a practical endeavor, but a culturally embedded practice, reinforcing group cohesion, identity, and continuity across generations. Ultimately, migration and seasonal movement exemplify the adaptability, intelligence, and resilience of early humans. Survival in the Ice Age required more than fire, clothing, or tools. It demanded knowledge of the land, anticipation of natural cycles, and the ability to act collectively under extreme conditions. Mobility transformed humans from passive inhabitants into active participants in the environment, enabling them to endure scarcity, avoid danger, and exploit the resources necessary for life. Migration was both strategy and survival, weaving together cognition, culture, and community in a tapestry that allowed life to persist in a frozen world. By understanding the complexity of these journeys, viewers gain insight into the remarkable ingenuity of Ice Age humans. They were not drifting aimlessly across frozen landscapes. They were observers, planners, and innovators, synchronizing their lives with nature's rhythms. Every trek, every planned route, and every seasonal relocation was an exercise in survival, intelligence, and social coordination, highlighting the extraordinary capacity of humans to endure, adapt, and thrive despite the harshest environmental challenges. In the stark, icy landscapes of the Ice Age, humans were constantly surrounded by animals, both allies and threats. The frozen plains teemed with massive herbivores such as woolly mammoths, reindeer, and bison, which provided food, clothing, and raw materials for tools and shelters. At the same time, formidable predators, including cave lions, wolves, and saber-toothed cats, roamed the same territories, posing a constant threat. The relationship between humans and animals was complex, defined by a delicate balance of observation, strategy, and respect. Survival depended on understanding animal behavior, exploiting opportunities, and avoiding danger, highlighting the intricate connection between humans and the natural world. Hunting was central to human survival, and early humans developed remarkable strategies to track, trap, and kill large prey. Coordinated hunting required planning, communication, and teamwork, often involving multiple individuals working in synchrony to drive herds toward ambush points or natural traps. Tools and weapons, such as spears, clubs, and stone blades, were essential, but equally important was knowledge of animal behavior, migration patterns, feeding habits, and seasonal movements. The contrast between the raw power of a mammoth and the strategic ingenuity of human hunters underscores the extraordinary adaptation and intelligence required to thrive in such a hostile environment. Predators demanded equal vigilance. Wolves, cave lions, and other carnivores were not only competitors for prey, but potential threats to human life. Early humans learned to interpret signs of predator presence, such as tracks, scat, and scratch marks, using this information to plan movements and secure shelters. Fire, communal living, and weapons provided protection, but constant awareness and quick decision-making were equally vital. Predators were both fearsome and instructive, shaping human behavior, hunting strategies, and social organization. The constant interplay between predator and human created a world of tension, strategy, and adaptation. Humans also demonstrated remarkable ingenuity in managing their interactions with animals. Traps, pitfalls, and ambush strategies allowed humans to capture or control large animals with minimal risk. Knowledge of herd behavior enabled hunters to predict movement and select optimal attack points. Even seemingly small innovations, such as the use of decoys, scent masking, or coordinated drives, enhance success rates. These strategies illustrate the sophisticated understanding early humans had of animal psychology and environmental dynamics. Humans were active participants in a predator-prey ecosystem, using intellect and cooperation to survive and thrive. Domestication or symbiotic relationships were not fully developed during the Ice Age, but early humans may have begun forming proto-alliances with certain animals. Observing wolves or scavengers could provide insights into hunting strategies, potential danger zones, or the locations of food sources. Early humans learned to read signs in the environment, tracking predators and prey's movements, which directly influence survival. The subtle interplay of observation, mimicry, and adaptation exemplifies the cognitive sophistication required to negotiate a world shared with formidable wildlife. Animals also provided raw materials for human survival beyond food. Hides and furs became clothing. Bones and antlers were crafted into tools, weapons, and shelter supports. Sinews were transformed into thread for sewing garments and constructing traps. Each interaction with the animal world carried multiple layers of utility, illustrating an economy of resources born from necessity. Every successful hunt enhanced survival, not only through immediate sustenance, but through materials critical for enduring the harsh winter months. The frozen world demanded that nothing be wasted, and early humans adapted with remarkable efficiency. The psychological dimension of interacting with animals was profound. Fear, awe, and respect shaped human responses to predators and prey alike. The presence of dangerous animals demanded vigilance, courage, and careful planning, while the sight of abundant herds inspired hope and opportunity. Humans developed strategies to manage anxiety and risk, using fire, social cooperation, and ritual to create a sense of security. Animals, in this sense, were teachers as well as threats, shaping cognition, behavior, and culture. Seasonal patterns of animal behavior directly influenced human migration, settlement, and resource management. Following herds ensured access to food and materials, while avoiding predator-dense regions minimized risk. Knowledge of seasonal cycles was accumulated over generations, encoded in memory, storytelling, and ritual. The natural world was a calendar, guide, and classroom, providing structure to human life in otherwise unpredictable conditions. By synchronizing human activity with animal movements, early humans transformed environmental constraints into a rhythm of survival, observation, and strategy. Predatory encounters also fostered technological and social innovation. Defensive tools, fortified shelters, and coordinated vigilance routines emerged directly from the need to mitigate risk. Communities developed watch rotations, early warning systems, and escape strategies, reflecting both ingenuity and social cohesion. The constant tension between threat and survival honed decision-making, situational awareness, and cooperative skills, creating humans capable of thriving in even the harshest conditions. Animals shape culture as well. Cave paintings and carvings frequently depicted animals, highlighting their centrality to human life, spirituality, and storytelling. The act of representing animals symbolically may have served ritual, educational, and mnemonic purposes, encoding knowledge of species, behavior, and hunting techniques for future generations. Animals were therefore inseparable from survival, technology, culture, and belief, a multifaceted presence that defined life in the Ice Age. Ultimately, the interplay between humans and animals was a dynamic dance of observation, adaptation, and innovation. Survival depended not merely on brute force, but on understanding, anticipation, and cooperation. Humans learned to respect, study, and manipulate their environment, extracting resources while minimizing risk. The frozen wilderness was both a source of peril and opportunity, and every interaction with an animal, be it predator or prey, shaped the evolution of human intelligence, society, and culture. By understanding these relationships, viewers gain insight into the profound adaptability of early humans. They were not passive victims of predation or climate. They were active agents, employing strategy, cooperation, and innovation to thrive in a world of massive beasts and deadly threats. Animals were partners, opponents, teachers, and resources, and the survival of Ice Age humans was inextricably linked to the intricate balance between fear, opportunity, and ingenuity in their interactions with the natural world. Winter transformed the landscape into a realm of scarcity, testing the ingenuity, resilience, and adaptability of early humans. Food was not merely sustenance. It was survival, requiring meticulous planning, deep knowledge of the environment, and cooperative effort. The frozen tundra offered limited resources, forcing humans to diversify their strategies, hunting large herbivores, trapping small game, foraging for roots, nuts, and berries, and even scavenging. Each choice involved risk, skill, and timing, highlighting the delicate balance between energy expenditure and reward that defined Ice Age survival. Hunting large game was a cornerstone of winter survival. Woolly mammoths, reindeer, bison, and other herbivores provided not only meat but hides, bones, and sinews essential for clothing, tools, and shelters. Tracking these animals required extraordinary observation and patience, noting signs such as footprints, droppings, feeding patterns, and seasonal migration routes. Coordinated group hunts involved strategy, communication, and timing. Herds could be driven toward natural traps like cliffs, narrow valleys, or frozen rivers, minimizing risk and maximizing success. The hunt was both a test of physical endurance and cognitive skill, a choreography of teamwork, anticipation, and precise execution. Small game hunting complemented large-scale strategies. Rabbits, birds, and rodents offered reliable food sources when larger prey was scarce or absent. Simple traps, snares, and sharpened sticks allowed humans to capture small animals efficiently, conserving energy while maintaining a steady supply of protein. Tracking techniques extended beyond sight, incorporating sounds, scents, and environmental clues. These small-scale practices highlight the breadth of knowledge early humans possessed, understanding both the behavior of their prey and the subtle dynamics of the surrounding ecosystem. Foraging for plants, roots, nuts, and berries required equal ingenuity. Cold winters restricted availability, with snow covering edible vegetation and freezing the soil. Humans adapted by digging beneath the snow, using specialized tools to access hidden tubers, or gathering preserved nuts and seeds. They observed seasonal cycles carefully, storing surplus food from autumn for lean winter months. Even ice and snow became instruments of survival. Frozen fruits could be thawed, dried plants rehydrated, and stored resources rationed to extend sustenance. This multifaceted approach demonstrates the intelligence and foresight required to convert a sparse, frozen landscape into a viable source of nourishment. Preservation of food was critical. Meat from hunts was dried, smoked, or frozen for storage, allowing humans to create reserves that could last weeks or months. Techniques varied by environment and available resources, with careful attention to avoiding spoilage and protecting caches from scavengers or rival groups. Proper storage reduced the pressure to hunt continuously in severe weather, allowing energy to be conserved for critical activities like shelter maintenance, clothing production, and fire management. Humans effectively managed both immediate and future needs, turning the environment's scarcity into a structured system of survival. Collaboration was central to winter food strategies. Hunting large game required coordination and division of labor, while foraging expeditions were more efficient in groups capable of scouting and sharing discoveries. Knowledge of edible plants, animal behavior, and seasonal cycles was passed down within the group, ensuring continuity and reducing trial and error risks. Social cooperation increased efficiency, reduced individual exposure to danger, and reinforced bonds that were essential for both survival and cultural transmission. Food was therefore a catalyst for social cohesion as much as a source of energy. Risk management was woven into every food-gathering decision. Hunting large animals carried the danger of injury or death, while foraging in unfamiliar terrain risked exposure, predator encounters, or wasting precious energy. Humans balanced these risks through observation, experience, and communal decision-making. Choices about when, where, and how to hunt or forage were informed by prior knowledge, environmental cues, and careful assessment of the group's strengths and needs. The success of these strategies highlights the remarkable adaptive intelligence of Ice Age humans. Seasonal variation shaped strategies. Early winter might allow for lingering plant resources or small game, while deep winter demanded reliance on stored food and large herd hunts. Observing snow patterns, ice thickness, and animal migration provided critical insights for planning expeditions. In spring, thawed landscapes revealed new foraging opportunities, signaling the shift from reliance on stored resources to fresh food acquisition. This intimate awareness of seasonal cycles illustrates a profound ecological intelligence, integrating observation, memory, and predictive planning into survival strategies. Psychologically, securing food in winter had profound effects. Hunger created stress and urgency, but successful hunts and gathered provisions fostered confidence, cohesion, and a sense of control. The human brain, attuned to risk and reward, was constantly engaged in calculations of effort, yield, and safety. Every successful meal was a triumph of observation, cooperation, and innovation, reinforcing the link between skill, foresight, and survival. Ice Age humans experienced the full spectrum of emotional responses to scarcity and abundance, deepening social bonds and cognitive development. Scavenging also played a role in food acquisition. Opportunistic use of carcasses left by predators or from natural death supplemented diets, providing critical nutrients when hunting or foraging was unsuccessful. This required knowledge of predator behavior, careful assessment of risks, and swift execution. Scavenging demonstrates the resourcefulness and adaptability of early humans, able to turn environmental challenges into survival opportunities while minimizing unnecessary danger. Ultimately, winter food strategies reflect the remarkable ingenuity and adaptability of early humans. Hunting, foraging, preservation, and social cooperation were interdependent systems, each enhancing the other to maximize survival. The frozen wilderness, which might have seemed inhospitable, became a structured landscape of opportunity through careful observation, planning, and innovation. Survival was not random. It was the product of intelligence, skill, and social cohesion. Humans turned scarcity into strategy, cold into challenge, and hunger into ingenuity, crafting a way of life finely tuned to the demands of winter. By examining winter food strategies, viewers gain insight into the intelligence, cooperation, and resilience that allowed early humans to endure extreme climates. The frozen tundra demanded adaptability, observation, and foresight, and humans responded with ingenuity, transforming the environment into a stage for survival. Each hunt, forage, and preserved meal represents a testament to human creativity, perseverance, and the relentless drive to endure, highlighting the intimate connection between people, nature, and the cycles of life in the Ice Age. In the frozen landscapes of the Ice Age, survival depended not only on food, fire, and weapons, but also on the ability to protect the body from extreme cold. Clothing and shelter were critical defenses against frostbite, hypothermia, and exposure, transforming a deadly environment into a livable space. Early humans used ingenuity and observation to turn animal hides, furs, bones, and natural materials into protective garments and structures, creating mobile and semi-permanent solutions that insulated against the harsh winter. These adaptations were not merely functional. They reflected intelligence, experimentation, and the ability to integrate knowledge of the environment, biology, and materials into survival strategies. Clothing was designed for warmth, mobility, and durability. Animal hides and furs provided insulation, while layering techniques maximized heat retention. Cavemen learned to stretch, cure, and sew hides into garments that covered the body effectively, including hands, feet, and the head, which are most vulnerable to freezing. Bone needles, awls, and sinew enabled precise stitching, producing flexible and resilient clothing that allowed movement while maintaining warmth. These garments were adapted to local conditions, reflecting careful observation of animal properties, seasonal changes, and the demands of daily activity. Footwear was particularly vital for mobility and protection. Snow, ice, and frozen terrain made travel perilous, and early humans developed moccasin-like shoes or wrappings from hides to shield feet from frostbite and injury. Proper footwear enabled hunters and foragers to traverse long distances safely, enhancing access to food, shelter, and resources. The development of foot coverings demonstrates early humans' ability to innovate using available materials, turning natural products into highly effective survival tools. Shelters complemented clothing, providing communal and personal protection against the elements. Natural formations such as caves, overhangs, and rock shelters were often used as winter homes, augmented with hides, branches, and snow to improve insulation. Cavemen understood airflow, thermodynamics, and snow insulation, strategically placing entrances, fires, and bedding to maximize warmth and minimize exposure to wind and cold. These shelters were not temporary conveniences. They were carefully engineered spaces designed for long-term survival, reflecting observation, problem-solving, and environmental adaptation. Constructing effective shelters required skill, cooperation, and planning. Large branches and bones could form structural frames, while animal skins and moss provided insulation and weatherproofing. Snow itself served as a natural insulator, with thick walls or coverings maintaining interior warmth despite sub-zero temperatures outside. Maintaining these shelters demanded routine care, reinforcing social cooperation, division of labor, and attention to detail. The combination of materials, design, and maintenance created environments where early humans could work, rest, and socialize safely amid extreme conditions. The hearth was central to both clothing maintenance and shelter function. Fires inside shelters allowed for drying wet clothing, curing hides, and providing warmth. Smoke was managed carefully to avoid suffocation, while maximizing heat retention. This integration of fire, clothing, and shelter demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of how different survival elements interact, turning seemingly independent tasks into coordinated systems that enhanced resilience. Clothing and shelter were also closely linked to cultural expression. Patterns, decoration, and symbolic adornments on garments may have reflected social identity, status, or group affiliation. Beyond practical function, these enhancements reinforce cohesion, communication, and shared identity within groups. The creation and use of decorated clothing and personalized shelters exemplified the integration of survival needs with cultural and social cognition, highlighting that early humans' adaptations were both functional and symbolic. Mobility influenced design. Portable shelters, lightweight clothing, and modular layering allowed groups to move efficiently during winter migrations. Garments could be adapted for hunting, travel, or sedentary activities, demonstrating flexibility and innovation. Similarly, temporary structures could be erected quickly in new locations, maintaining warmth and protection while minimizing labor. These mobile solutions allowed early humans to navigate a dynamic landscape without sacrificing safety, comfort, or survival potential. Knowledge of materials and techniques was transmitted across generations. Elders taught younger members how to select hides, cure furs, and construct clothing suited for specific temperatures or terrains. Shelter building skills, including structural planning, insulation, and fire management, were similarly passed down, ensuring continuity of expertise and enhancing group survival. This intergenerational transfer of knowledge reinforced social bonds and allowed incremental improvements over time, reflecting cumulative learning and adaptation in response to environmental challenges. Clothing and shelter were also vital for psychological well-being. Warmth, protection, and comfort reduced stress, anxiety, and fatigue, allowing early humans to focus on other survival tasks such as hunting, foraging, and social interaction. Knowing that one was insulated against the worst of winter's extremes provided confidence, morale, and mental resilience. These psychological benefits were as important as physical protection, emphasizing that survival in the Ice Age was both a practical and emotional endeavor. Ultimately, clothing and shelter transformed the frozen wilderness from a threat into a manageable environment. Through careful observation, experimentation, and social coordination, early humans created adaptive solutions that maximized warmth, safety, and mobility. These innovations were not static. They evolved through experience, environmental feedback, and cultural transmission, reflecting both intelligence and creativity. Winter survival was made possible by the combined power of protective garments, well-constructed shelters, and a knowledge of how to integrate these elements effectively into daily life. By mastering clothing and shelter, early humans demonstrated the profound interplay between environmental awareness, practical skill, and social learning. These adaptations were essential for enduring extreme cold, maintaining energy and health, and facilitating mobility and resource acquisition. The garments and shelters of the Ice Age were more than mere survival tools. They were evidence of human ingenuity, resilience, and the capacity to transform a hostile environment into a habitat capable of sustaining life, culture, and community. As the harsh winds of the Ice Age swept across frozen plains and towering glaciers, early humans endured a world of extremes that tested every facet of their existence. Survival was not a matter of strength alone. It required ingenuity, observation, cooperation, and resilience. From the careful construction of shelters to the mastery of fire, the crafting of tools, and the intricate strategies for hunting and foraging, every action was a calculated response to a hostile environment. The narrative of Ice Age survival is, above all, a story of adaptation, where human intelligence, social cohesion, and creativity converge to overcome the relentless challenges of winter life. The legacy of these early humans extends far beyond their immediate survival. Their innovations in tools, hunting strategies, and social organization laid the foundations for future technological and cultural evolution. Knowledge was encoded and passed down through generations via storytelling, ritual, and apprenticeship, creating a continuum of learning that enabled successive communities to survive more efficiently and with increasing sophistication. The contrast between vulnerability and mastery in these early societies illustrates how human ingenuity transforms adversity into opportunity, shaping both individual lives and collective destiny. Observing animal behavior, navigating treacherous landscapes, and anticipating seasonal changes fostered unparalleled ecological intelligence. Early humans were keenly attuned to the rhythms of the natural world, synchronizing their migrations, hunts, and foraging with cycles of flora and fauna. This intimate relationship with the environment was a balance of respect, observation, and intervention. By decoding the patterns of nature, they transformed scarcity into structured opportunity, demonstrating that survival was as much about cognition and foresight as it was about physical endurance. Social cohesion proved equally crucial. Families, clans, and larger communities relied on cooperation, shared knowledge, and division of labor to endure winters that could quickly turn fatal. The bonds forged through communal living, hunting, and ritual strengthened trust, reinforced social norms, and transmitted critical survival skills. Emotional resilience, nurtured through shared hardship and collective achievement, was a form of armor as vital as any physical protection. In essence, human survival in the Ice Age was a synthesis of intellect, social strategy, and adaptive behavior, a model of interdependence that remains relevant in understanding human evolution. Cultural and spiritual practices added another layer to survival. Rituals, cave art, and symbolic behaviors reflected not only aesthetic and emotional expression, but also functional knowledge. Storytelling preserved ecological insights, hunting strategies, and social norms, while ceremonial practices fostered cohesion and psychological stability. Belief systems, though rooted in observation and symbolism, provided a framework for understanding and controlling an unpredictable world. They transformed fear into structure, danger into meaning, and isolation into community, illustrating that survival was as much mental and emotional as it was physical. Tools and fire, the tangible hallmarks of ingenuity, amplified human capability in unprecedented ways. Weapons extended reach and safety, while tools transformed raw materials into functional, survival-enhancing implements. Fire was warmth, protection, and nourishment, as well as a social and technological catalyst. These innovations created a feedback loop. Enhanced survival allowed further experimentation, innovation, and cultural development, which in turn improved the chances of enduring future winters. Humans became not just survivors, but architects of their own destiny, shaping the environment and crafting strategies for continuity. The dynamic interaction with animals shaped cognition, strategy, and technological evolution. Predators and prey alike demanded constant vigilance, observation, and adaptability. Hunting required coordination, anticipation, and knowledge of behavior, while defensive strategies protected communities from deadly threats. Simultaneously, animals provided vital resources for food, clothing, and tools, creating a profound interdependence. This intricate relationship underscores the complex intelligence and environmental awareness that defined Ice Age humans, a blend of risk management, resourcefulness, and ecological mastery. Winter survival also left a lasting imprint on human psychology and culture. Challenges forged resilience, problem-solving, and strategic thinking, while successes reinforced confidence, cooperation, and planning. The necessity of endurance under extreme conditions shaped social norms, rituals, and knowledge transmission, laying the groundwork for complex societies. Ice Age humans demonstrate that adversity is a crucible for innovation, shaping not only immediate survival strategies, but the cognitive and cultural capabilities that define humanity. The lessons of Ice Age survival resonate far beyond prehistory. They remind us that human ingenuity is most profound when tested by adversity, that social cohesion multiplies individual capability, and that knowledge, observation, and cooperation are as critical as physical strength. Early humans transformed an environment of scarcity, cold, and danger into a space of opportunity, community, and continuity. Their legacy is not simply the tools or shelters they left behind, but the enduring principles of adaptation, learning, and resilience that continue to inform human experience today. Finally, the Ice Age stands as a testament to the symbiosis of humans and nature. Early humans were not conquerors in a hostile world. They were participants, observers, and innovators, shaping survival strategies while remaining attuned to the rhythms of the environment. The frozen landscape demanded respect, ingenuity, and cooperation, and in meeting these challenges, humans laid the foundations of culture, technology, and social organization. The enduring story of Ice Age survival reminds us that life's most formidable challenges can inspire ingenuity, forge bonds, and cultivate resilience, the very traits that have enabled humanity to endure across millennia. In reflecting on the totality of Ice Age human life, one sees a delicate balance of fear and courage, vulnerability and mastery, scarcity and abundance. Every decision, from hunting and foraging to shelter building and ritual practice, was informed by acute awareness and adaptive intelligence. The interplay of technology, social cohesion, and environmental knowledge created a framework of survival that was as elegant as it was effective. Early humans exemplified the power of cooperation, observation, and creativity, leaving a legacy that continues to illuminate the profound capabilities of our species. In conclusion, the story of Ice Age survival is not merely a chronicle of cold, hunger, and predation. It is a testament to the human spirit, a story of innovation, resilience, and cultural evolution forged in the crucible of extreme conditions. From fire and tools to social bonds, ritual, and environmental mastery, early humans transformed a frozen world of uncertainty into a structured, enduring, and meaningful existence. Their legacy endures in the ingenuity, cooperation, and adaptability that define humanity. A reminder that survival is not only about enduring hardship, but about learning, creating, and thriving in harmony with the challenges of the natural world.